All right, all you gun voters in the 1st Congressional District, Mariannette Miller-Meeks versus David Pautsch. Who's going to fight for our gun rights in Congress? Stay tuned, guys. I'm breaking this race down for you right now. Hey guys, Aaron Dorr here with Iowa Gun Owners. The June 4 primary is coming right around the corner, and we're getting a lot of emails and phone calls from IGO members and other gun voters in Southeast Iowa about this matchup between David Pautsch and Mariannette Miller-Meeks. And the question you're asking us is kind of the same question we talk about every 2 years at campaign season. It's who's going to fight for us? Who can we trust? How do we know that this person is not just saying they're pro-gun at election time and won't betray us if they're elected to Congress? It's an important question to ask because these days we have Republicans who are actually working in tandem with the Biden White House to attack our gun rights. For example, pro-gun Republican, heavy sarcasm intended, Brian Fitzpatrick from Pennsylvania, a Republican, he's the lead sponsor on Biden's universal gun registry bill, H.R. 715. So it's clear, and we all know this, that just because you're a Republican does not mean you're pro-gun. And so we must get this right. Regardless of who wins the White House in the fall, we have to have pro-gun members in Congress. So we're going to try to give you guys a snapshot on David Pautsch and Mariannette Miller-Meeks so you guys have the information you need to have to make the most informed decision possible. I'm going to begin with David Pautsch. And the great news about David, the guy is 100% pro-gun on his Iowa Gun Owners Candidate Survey. You can see his survey and all of our surveys actually right now on our website, iowagunowners.org. So for us to be 100% pro-gun, it means that she'll not only vote the right way, but she'll help lead in the fight for gun rights by sponsoring or at least co-sponsoring pro-gun bills in Congress. And that's what David Pautsch has said he would do. Through our national affiliate, we have legislation filed right now in Congress to repeal the NFA Act, the National Firearms Act. If you're a gun owner, you probably know the NFA is the vehicle that Joe Biden has used to make executive decisions to ban pistol braces or bump stocks or redefine what a firearms dealer is. It's total tyranny. Everybody knows it. The NFA Act has got to go. That bill's been filed in Congress. David Pautsch would support that legislation with a co-sponsorship. We asked him about Congressman Matt Gaetz's bill to abolish the ATF. The ATF, in our opinion, you guys probably agree, it can't be fixed, it can't be reformed. Its very existence these days is a threat to gun owners across the country. It needs to go. Matt Gaetz is pushing for that. David Pautsch would support that legislation in the Congress. I asked him, what about national stand your ground law? We've got stand your ground law here in Iowa. That's kind of the problem. In a red state like Iowa with stand your ground law, sometimes what we're seeing in other states is when the Biden White House sees a high-profile self-defense situation like Kyle Rittenhouse in Wisconsin, when the jury finds him not guilty, Biden turns to Merrick Garland and the DOJ, and they're talking about trying to come after gun owners with federal charges. That's why we must have a national stand your ground law. David Pautsch supports that. All the rest of the questions we asked him, he's opposed to red flag gun seizures, opposed to AR-15 bans, opposed to universal background checks, raising the age of when you can buy guns, waiting periods, all of it. David Pautsch, 100% pro-gun. We're happy to acknowledge that. And that brings up Congresswoman Mariannette Miller-Meeks, MMM. Pretty much all I said about David Pautsch, just do the exact opposite. That's the rundown when it comes to Mariannette Miller-Meeks. She's been there for 4 years now. And from every gun owner I have spoken to for the last couple of years, she has been nothing but a complete disgrace when it comes to our gun rights. But I'm going to give you guys some details. First of all, she's refused her Iowa Gun Owners Gun Rights Candidate questionnaire. I'm not going to lie to you, I wasn't holding my breath. I'm not that surprised. But we don't need a survey to give you guys a detailed overview on what Mariannette's done in Congress for the last couple of years. Her first year in Congress, she voted for red flag gun seizures. The bill number was 4350. That's H.R. 4350. The date was September 23, 2021. Roll call number, in case you want that, was 293. Now, the red flag law was in a military appropriations bill, and it specifically targeted the military with red flag gun seizures. It was an unconscionable vote from Miller-Meeks. We reached out to her office. They were very condescending. We then told you, gun voters in Southeast Iowa, you guys bludgeoned her with calls and emails. So a couple days later, she has a big press release calling for the Senate to undo the language that she approved in the House. Thank God it was later removed. But Mariannette Miller-Meeks, when she had a chance to vote for gun owners, for the military, she voted for red flag gun seizures. Again, that was H.R. 4350. It's also interesting to note that all of the pro-gun bills that we have asked Miller-Meeks to co-sponsor for the last couple of years, she has basically said, screw off. H.R. 450 is the bill to abolish the National Firearms Act. She wouldn't co-sponsor that. We asked her to co-sponsor H.R. 374, the bill to abolish the ATF with Congressman Gates. She wouldn't support that. We asked her to co-sponsor H.R. 6248, National Stand Your Ground Law. She won't co-sponsor that. But it gets a lot worse, and it gets a lot worse, in fact. In 2022, Miller-Meeks was a yes vote on H.R. 2471. Now this, like most bills in Congress, was an omnibus, so it's jammed full of a lot of different things. Maybe some of those things were good. Most of them probably were bad. But smack dab in there was a massive gun control bill that Dianne Feinstein originated in the Senate. They then tucked it inside of this budget bill over in the House. What it did was 3 or 4 key things. Number one, this legislation, which Miller-Meeks voted for, mandates a police report be generated every time someone fails a NICS check. Now, if you know anything about NICS checks, you know that almost every single failure is a false positive. Maybe you share a birth date with a wanted fugitive. Maybe your address is similar to somebody who has a felony conviction. You know, maybe you have something in common with your name, your birthday, your address, your social, whatever, with somebody who can't buy a gun. The system always flags us and says, he might be prohibited. They're almost always false positives. Over 95% of them are, and everyone knows it. But Miller-Meeks, in this bill, voted to mandate a criminal report be generated to then have law enforcement go and investigate it. It's absolutely insulting to gun owners, complete waste of time for law enforcement. It's stupid. That wasn't the worst of it by far. She also voted to make a new category of misdemeanors added to the prohibited persons list. So if you have a harassment conviction or a misdemeanor stalking conviction or other types of nonviolent, non-contact-based misdemeanors, you can no longer buy firearms. Now, of course, some are going to say, I don't want somebody with a harassment conviction to buy a gun. I get that. The point here is not to defend a criminal. The point is that for decades and decades and decades, a felony has been the line between when someone could or could not buy a gun. It's always been that way. And if we move that to include non-violent misdemeanor offenses, before long, we're going to see dozens of misdemeanors added to the prohibited persons list. And so it is not hyperbole to say that down the road, we could see massive numbers of gun owners who have no felony convictions, no violent convictions, unable to buy guns, thanks to what she did on H.R. 2471. This is the worst part. Then, after she creates a new classification of who can't buy firearms, Miller-Meeks in this bill voted for money to be given to county attorneys here in Iowa, so when they're responsible for investigating these new alleged crimes, sarcasm intended, these false positives or these people who are now prohibited, when the county attorney has to investigate that, they're now going to be funded with federal dollars. And the staff member who does the investigation will be deputized a temporary U.S. attorney to bring these charges up in federal court, not state court, not county court right here in Iowa. The same thing for law enforcement. This bill allows money to be put in place to temporarily federalize our local law enforcement and make them acting ATF agents to investigate these new gun crimes. Now, I don't know about you, but the last thing I want to see with this madman in the White House is loss of local control. The idea that now your local county attorney doesn't really report to you, doesn't really answer to gun owners in the county, he now or she now gets money right from the White House, is a horrible precedent. The same thing for local law enforcement. We've always, here in Iowa, had immediate access to our sheriff. We know who he is. Everyone can contact the sheriff. It's how our culture is. This is changing that. This is federalizing our law enforcement in a way that will only be used to harm our gun rights and give more power to the White House. These are all the things that she has done in just the first 4 years that she's been in the Congress. Very, very damaging things when it comes to our gun rights. You know, there's larger, broader cultural things as well to kind of paint the picture of how Miller-Meeks looks at our freedom and looks at her role in the Congress. You know, one of the biggest things that we could not believe she did was last fall when there was a leadership election to replace Kevin McCarthy, thank God, and Jim Jordan was vying for that post. Miller-Meeks was a hell no on Jim Jordan's nomination to be Speaker of the House. I don't know about you, but especially now, seeing how weak Speaker Johnson is, I would very much like to have Jim Jordan holding that gavel. And he can't, in part because Mariannette Miller-Meeks was actively whipping the GOP conference to vote no on Jordan's nomination. Was it last month? Last month. She was a yes vote on Biden's request to extend the FISA warrant process. I want to be clear on this. This is the Foreign Intelligence Service spying apparatus. The idea behind this from back in the day was for foreign nationals in our country, spies or suspected spies who had to be surveilled by our government for national security purposes. The idea was to keep that investigation somewhat private and protect national security. But as we all know, it's complete BS now, and they're spying on Americans. That's how we got the Steele dossier against President Trump. This entire agency, this entire process has now been weaponized against us, against you, against me, against the American people. Everyone knows it. It's horrific what they have done to President Trump using these FISA warrant applications. And I Googled this because some people might say, well, you have to get a warrant still from the secret court that no one knows about, that we can't attend, that we can't observe. You have to get a warrant to issue a FISA spying authorization. That's true. But check this out. Since this whole system began in 1980, 41,222 FISA warrants were applied for from these secret courts. You want to guess how many were denied? Out of 41,000? 85. 85. This is a complete rubber stamp from the bureaucratic machine in Washington, D.C. to weaponize our own government against us. Everyone knows it. We've all seen it happen to President Trump. So we know it's happening to everybody else that the government wants to spy on. And so she was a yes vote on that. That was H.R., what was that? 7888. It happened, it was last fall. Terrible stuff. More cultural stuff. H.R. 8404. This was last December 8, 2023. The roll call number was 513. This was the bill that the left was pushing so hard. The sponsor was Jerry Nadler from New York to grant legal status, special legal status, extra special status, you might say, to same-sex marriages. And what that's going to do is allow these people to bring more and more and more lawsuits against the proverbial cake baker who says, yeah, I don't want to do this for your wedding. I don't want to do it. They're allowing, conservatives to be destroyed through lawfare, and it was made possible because Mariannette Miller-Meeks voted for this crap just last year. So guys, when it comes to your gun rights, it's pretty freaking simple. Miller-Meeks voted for red flags, voted for this horrific legislation to add all new kinds of categories as to who is a prohibited person. She voted to give money from the feds to weaponize local law enforcement against us. She's backed all the left's cultural ideas in D.C. She's a hardcore rhino who has stabbed gun owners in the back repeatedly. So if you see Miller-Meeks in the campaign trail, Be sure to ask her to apologize for all the crap she has voted for against our gun rights in her first 4 years in Congress. If you see David Pautsch, be sure and thank this guy for having the guts to stand up for what he believes in, for having the guts to sign his survey 100%, and for vowing to lead in the fight for gun rights in Congress. Guys, to see more race breakdowns, go to our YouTube channel, our Facebook page, or our website. We're covering races all across the state. Be sure and share us online, guys, and join the fight today at joinigo.com.